the Cincinnati Bengals losing to the Los Angeles Chargers 34-27. Bengals now 4-7 on the season. Chargers 7-3. I mean, first of all, the Chargers were 24-6 at the half. So I think a little bit of Harbaugh is going to be, pretty miffed that this game ran this close. Because I think, when you're leading like that into the half, I think a coach like him sees it as, no, well, we need to put, our foot on the throat here and really, stop these guys to the mud and get out of here with our win, move on to the next game. But the Bengals, fought back in it and really gave it a good go to try and get back in it, but just fell short to a J.K. Dobbins rushing touchdown, which, they were in field goal range. They could, from what we've seen this weekend, maybe they would have missed it or maybe it would have been blocked, but you'd like to think that they probably would have got that. So what did you make of this game?
I thought it was one of the better games, actually. It was one of them where, like you say, in a way, probably the Chiefs-Bills should have been the Sunday night game, and it would have been nicer if it was, because then we would have been able to watch this one earlier, kind of thing. I thought it was quite an exciting game. They're very polar opposites as teams. Chargers are very sort of like run heavy, defensive minded. Bengals very much about Burrow chase, and fortunately in this game T Higgins was fit, so him as well. But two quite exciting teams to watch at the moment. I think Harbaugh has completely changed everything to do with the Chargers. They're definitely a team that are much more exciting to watch than what I think we thought they would be. And it's really sort of like opened it up for Justin Herbert. And I think that he looked really good last night. He only threw for 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 297 yards. But the point is that he only had 36 attempts. It's like it wasn't an insane amount. It is kind of coming down a bit, and it's quite 50-50 compared to what it was before. And because of that, it's really helping Herbert out, because he hasn't got it all on his shoulders, which is what he had the last couple of years. And so you're seeing, okay, yeah, that final play, it was a J.K. Dobbins run, but there were 2 really, really good passes to get
really good passes
into that position in order to be able to do that and win the game. And so something that's been leveled at Herbert is that he can't finish off games. Okay, he didn't throw the final touchdown, but he got them to where they needed to. And now the run game is there to help. It kind of almost means that it's not so much on him. And so that was huge. And I think that's been huge for him all of this season. And I really think that the sky's the limit for the Chargers. I really do. Because that defense, it didn't do amazing in the second half. It kind of disappeared a little bit. But the one thing I would say is when you're going up against Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase and T Higgins, it's quite easy for any defense to disappear, even the good ones. So I think that was probably more what it was. It was that the Bengals offense just exploded in that second half and really did very well. Chase Brown as well as their running back really, really did well as well. And I think that if you're a Bengals fan, you just must be so frustrated at this defense who are just giving up points so easily. And it's like I say, that final drive, there was no coverage at all. It was like the receivers were wide open. Dobbins with a rushing touchdown, but like 30 yards out. And just sort of like, yeah, absolutely crazy that you would give that much space to these guys. And I'm not surprised that that's how it ended. Unfortunately for the Bengals, I think they're going to miss out because the defense just isn't doing enough. They've got to invest in that defense. And the Chargers have just got another win, and they're going to be tough to beat anyone. They really are. And I think there's going to be some. It wouldn't surprise me if they're a wild card team and they make an upset on one of the big teams. It really wouldn't. But yeah.
I put at the start of my notes, this game is a story of how the Bengals defense is really, really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad. But what a pleasure it was to see like 2 young, really good quarterbacks just like going at it. Where, like, this is a battle for, not a battle, maybe, not a divisional battle, but a game that we'll see probably in the future, for the next 10 years with both of these guys. Like, how cool will that be? Like, how fun will that be? I think for the Chargers, I mean, I've got a couple of bits and bobs here. I mean, they've only had one game where they went 100 yards rushing and won. So I still think rushing is their thing. I mean, and that was against the Browns. So, you know, it was the Browns. Like, let's not worry about that one sort of thing. Like, they are going to do that, but then they know they can unleash Herbert. They can just unleash Herbert. And Lab McConkey's really coming on. Quentin Johnston, I mean, has gone from bust to superstar in this offense. Like, and you wouldn't have thought that Harbaugh, John Harbaugh would be turning a wide receiver into that sort of guy. You know, he makes running back. You know, that was what he's known for is his running game and his solid defenses, obviously. You know, they've had 3 losses to. I mean, they've had 3. They've lost to the Steelers, Chiefs, and Cardinals. I'm not saying Fields is an elite quarterback, but that is a team that has got a fantastic defense. You played against an elite quarterback in Pat Mahomes. You played against a quarterback that people are saying is in the MVP race in the Arizona Cardinals. You know, they've not played particularly great teams throughout this season, and this was like a benchmark. I think. And I'm not saying Bengals are a great team either, but you know, you've got again, it's like the Josh Allen thing I said. Any team with Joe Burrow can win. You know, any team with Josh Allen can win. Like, Joe Burrow is being held back at the minute by how poor his defense is, and he is having to be, and also how poor his running game is as well. And he's having to be this throwing machine, which he is, and he's really, really good at that. And you know, the defense is number 1 in points against them, so they know how to hold teams. You know, their stats aren't great on everything else, but they're a decent defense, and they're going places. And it's just then on the flip side of the Bengals, like, they're wearing Joe Burrow out. He's having to be exceptional for them to win. And they can only be exceptional one way, and that's throwing the ball, because their run game is really bad. Even though I think Chase Brown is definitely a great prospect. I think Chase Brown is a very good prospect, and he's clearly going to be their number 1 running back now. And that's fine. That's going to be really good. But, you know, it's a little bit late in the day for you to be having your running back be exceptional now. You know, we're 11 weeks in. You can't, if you want to go to the playoffs, you can't be having that 11 weeks in. You know, okay, you may lose players to injury and stuff like that, but then your players need to step up. You know, when you look at the 49ers, you know, 5-5, been without CMC most of the season. Yes, Jeff Mason was decent, but would they be in the same position if CMC was in there the whole season? Don't think so. I think they'd be top of the division. Maybe, you know, it's a knock-on effect, isn't it? And, you know, I'm not going to bore everyone again, because I feel like we've sort of you know, killed the stats to obliteration now of how much we've said them on this podcast and on the Tuesday show. You know, they are a bottom ranking defense. They're really poor. And is it we discussed it a week back, was it the fact that Jesse Bates left? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's just not great. And, you know, we know, you know what you're coming up against the Chargers. You know they like to run the ball, but you know that Herbert's got their arm. You could argue, I just said that Johnston and McConkey are doing well. Yes, they're doing well, but they are nowhere elite. You know, these guys can be stopped. You can outplay these guys, and the Bengals just don't have players to do it. They've also now got a really bad injury to their cornerback, I think, who's now out for the season. I just saw reported a moment ago, which again is that's going to hinder it even more. The name I'm completely forgetting now, though.
Cornerback?
DJ Turner.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's fractured his clavicle, is going to be out for the season.
Right.
You know, it's not what you need, is it? Like, you know, it's just bad. But and then you have to rely on Joe Burrow. You know, and now next 3 games for the Bengals: Steelers, Cowboys, Titans. I think they lose to us. I do. Even against Burrow. Even I know Burrow's really good. I think we beat them still at the way we're going at the minute. They go against Cowboys. I think they beat the Cowboys, and then again, how the Titans play pretty well over the weekend. You know, that the Titans could be a tough game for them. I think this has been a bit of a humbling season for the Bengals, of where they were to where they are now, and a big learning curve. And, you know, Zach Taylor without Joe Burrow only had 2 wins, you know. Got Joe Burrow, goes to Super Bowl, goes to playoffs, you know, and suddenly when you're hindering Joe Burrow a lot, you know, it's not looking great. Could you argue their 4 wins have been because of Joe Burrow? I don't know. I don't know the box scores for each of them games, but yeah, there's got to be that conversation surely now by its point.
Yeah, it is difficult with what's going on there. And when I was just having a quick look at the you know, the depth chart for him, and when you look at some of the, I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt has not had a great season. He has struggled a bit. But when you look at them, you got Von Bell, you got Geno Stone. Obviously, like you say, DJ Turner's just gone out injured. I don't know. It just kind of feels like a lot of guys that are not at the top of their game when it comes to the secondary there. Trey Hendrickson has still been decent, but I mean, he's a guy who's going to want to get paid, and he's getting older as well. That's the other thing. So it's tough there. Sheldon Rankin.
I honestly thought that the Lions should have traded for him.
Yeah, I mean,
to be honest.
I think I was looking into it, and when you look at his age and his contract, I think he's a free agent at the end of this season. So he and given his age of, I think he's 31 or 32, he's going to want to get paid a last payday somewhere, and it kind of feels like they're not really doing it. Sam Hubbard has not been as great as what he's been in the last couple of years. It just feels like this defense has not only lost some of its star names like Jesse Bates, it's also just generally got a little bit weaker as well, and a bit older, and that kind of seems to be the problem. Yes, a lot of it obviously is on Joe Burrow and that offense, so losing T. Higgins as much as they have is very difficult as well. I think you have to maybe question Zach Taylor a little bit here, but I don't think it's completely on him. I think some of this is to do with the organisation in general, the GM, and just the fact that they're in the NFL.
They've not drafted well.
No, they haven't.
And they've not drafted well on defense either, and they have focused on it.
No,
and they've not drafted well.
And I think Zach Taylor will probably end up paying for it come the end of the season, because I think the idea of having Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase as your main guys in your offense, and you're not getting into the playoffs, I think is probably the end for the head coach.
Yeah, you sort of look at that and go, well, if you can't do it with them two, who can you do it with?
Yeah,
in that sort of sense. Right, fine.